Now this meeting is officially called to order. Since we have a new commissioner with us today, I would like us, like last month, to just take a few more seconds for each of our introductions. We can start with Linda, go to the right.
My name is Linda Thompson. I'm the Senior Environmental Planner and the Liaison Coordinator to the Environmental Commission.
I'm Alana Huey, and I am Linda's fellow intern. I'm a graduate student.
I'm David Parkhurst. I was professor in SPIA for about 30 years. With a doctorate in botany, mostly taught methods.
I'm Connor Wright. I'm an undergrad at IU. I'm a sophomore studying business and political science.
Mike Whitman, I'm retired from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
But in theory, I graduated from Purdue, in May, with a degree in environmental engineering and a minor in environmental policy. I currently am an environmental engineer.
Welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Matt Colby, Commissioner, also Vice Chair.
Megan Murphy. I'm a professor and I'm a lecturer, and I teach in biology, mostly with research methods and entomology.
Introductions.
I'm Carrie. I'm almost always late. I'm always running something, but I'm Carrie Albright. I'm a commissioner and I work for the North American Association for Environmental Education.
Cool. I'm Sam. I'm the chair of the commission. I'm in my last semester at IU studying environmental and sustainability studies in my GIS certificate. So that is it for introductions. The next item is to approve last month's minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review those?
I move to do that.
Second,
Great. Do we need to do roll call?
Yes.
Since Damien, okay, so then we will start with David,
Yes.
Connor,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Betsy,
Yes.
Matt,
yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
and I say yes as well, so that is unanimous.
And Daniel,
That's, is she?
I don't think she's on yet. She
carry
hasn't
on.
asked me
You
to let her.
respect
No. Having said that, the next item is the public comment period. It doesn't look like we have anybody in here in person, and it doesn't look like we have anybody on Zoom. So,
At this time, I'd like to move to, same as last month, we move reports to after old and new business. We'd like to move that we make that a permanent change, including in today's agenda.
Second.
great, we have a motion for that. We will do another roll call vote for that, starting with David,
Yes.
Connor, Mike,
Yes.
Betsy, Matt,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
I also vote yes. So, okay,
When did it start that we have to record everybody's vote as opposed to this?
It started with the Zoom
Zoom.
meetings.
Oh,
it depends if we have a member participating online, we have to do roll call, that's just part of the hybrid rules. That
okay, but we don't, right?
Well, we're expecting today,
But we're expecting.
so
Okay.
it's just for the sake of this, I figured it's safer to
Right.
do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the next item, with old business being at the end now, is new business. And the first item on your business is a discussion on the costs, changing number of chickens allowed to 10.
I'm confused.
Why are we doing
We
one
just,
business?
yeah, we just moved reports.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. My bad. Old business is more important, so we have to start that first. That also makes more sense, so. Item A is an update from the ECPC regarding the UPO updates, and that is Linda and Mike, I believe.
And here's to Daniel.
Okay, welcome to Damia. We'll pause just for a second while she logs on completely. Did Damia let us know when you can hear us?
She wanna show her video. I can give her unless she's.
She's not a co-host.
She may not be able to unmute herself or she didn't want to see the file.
Okay, and I do that under security.
Security, yes, security.
So click that, but you can unmute yourself and show her. There you
Okay, Damien, now you should be able to unmute your screen or unmute your microphone and share your screen if you'd like to.
All right, here I am. Hi.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I want to do one thing really quick because you just joined. We have a new commission member with us today, Damien. So would you like to give a quick introduction?
Sorry, say again? What?
We have a new commission member today.
Oh,
So would
okay.
you like to do an introduction?
Yes, yes. I am Damia Whitney. I have been on the tree commission or the environmental commission a couple of times. I'm a member of the tree commission. I'm a docent for the art museum. I'm a retired English professor who taught environmental studies. I think that covers it.
Should I give my introduction again? Okay, so I just.
Yeah, go ahead, Vern, if you'd like to.
Yeah, I graduated in May with a degree in environmental engineering and a minor in environmental policy, and I just started my career as an environmental engineer.
Nice to meet you.
What was the last?
Nice to meet you.
Environmental what?
Engineer.
Oh, engineer, okay.
Okay, great. So back to ECPC.
Sure, I got some comments on our original draft letter of proposed amendments to the UDO that we're supposed to send to the planning department. And so we're going to evaluate Linda's comments and collaborate on developing a new draft for that. And then we'll send that around to the entire commission for their comments.
When is the goal of having them done?
That's, I never figured that out.
Well, it's, Scott wants to take it to the plan commission the first of the year. But because of that, we'll have to go through the planning department and have to go through this person and that person. But he told me, the last thing he had said was, we have to have it done by the end of the year.
By the end of the year. Well, that shouldn't be a problem. We'll get together, the planning committee will get together and then rewrite the draft for this and we'll send it around to everybody. Hopefully ready to vote on my next meeting.
That would be great, yeah, because that would leave us 1 month buffer in case we have some extra edits to do by the end of December. Is that it for ECPC? Is there anything else?
Yeah, we can have meetings.
Okay, does anybody else have anything to say or any questions about that? Okay. Next item is a summary on Bug Fest. Megan, would you like to head that?
Sure. We had a wonderful time. in Bud.
Did you raise your hand?
No.
Okay.
We had the 4 of us total. And it was the biggest bug fest ever. They say about 1,100 people moved through.
Wow.
They all stopped by our table. We were right near the beginning. And I know, Sam, you emailed me that day and I saw it the next morning because that's how crazy the day was. Oh, it was certainly not your fault, but it kept us busy and it seemed like a popular and successful booth. I brought a box of pinned insects they were all very common local insects, but I was the only one letting kids touch the collection. So they got to like pet a honeybee and how fuzzy it was and all of these wonderful things. The insects were in many pieces by the end of the day, but we also distributed a lot of good brochures and a lot of the pamphlets about native plants and have some things to do in people's houses to basically bring in more insects.
Great.
Anything anyone wants to add?
Thank you all for doing it. I was sorry I had to miss that one too, because I love the bug.
Sounds great.
It was fun.
So who went to the flea circus?
I saw some of that.
He was awesome.
I didn't realize what it was. I didn't stay till the finish.
Well, thank you guys so much for tabling at that event. Also, my apologies for not being able to make it that day.
We had a great group.
Sounds like it was really fun.
Yes.
So, thank you for that. So the next item is the air quality working group. Matt and Lana, do you have anything to share from that?
We didn't officially meet within the last month.
Okay.
Alana and I met informally and talked about some of each of the things that we looked up in our own time. There isn't officially a working group update at this time.
Okay. I have a little bit about the flow two air quality monitors. I did some research on the inconsistencies between the monitors, and I'm not sure if you were talking about this, but part of the like AI built into it needs like a month like burn-in period, and so whatever that means is that it needs like 4 to 8 weeks to calibrate. It's different,
Like in one location.
just all the time, wherever you bring it, so if you can have it on for like as much as possible and connected to your phone running, that is supposed to level it out, but that could be a big pain to do that, so. That's, I'm just repeating what I said.
We did have it on for weeks on end, and it did seem to more or less establish a baseline. I guess just my thing is, I think they aren't useful for our purposes.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
It's, I mean, it's in a room, once it's set for a while, maybe the baseline's good. Walking on a bike, changing environments, they just kind of freak out. It's not the caliber of data that I was looking for. And
For
it's
sure.
as valuable as I thought it would be, given that they're wearable. I thought that you could be getting good readings while you're out and about. If the city's plan was to have a lot of these and to have citizens be able to check them out and monitor their own home or their own neighborhood, that burn-in period you mentioned makes me question even more.
True.
That plan, even if we're treating it like a library of monitors, if people are checking them out, what are they gonna get from them? What in effect
Good
is the
point.
city gain?
And
So Linda brought me a second one that I was gonna compare the two, but I've used mine a little bit, not months, and I think it's useful. That's gotta be turned on for a couple of months before it means anything. I'm not gonna do that, so.
I'm not saying that's practical either, I'm just saying that's what it said, and that might give us a little insight to what was going on with it, but I agree with you, I don't think it would be practical to have the general public taking these out and trying to get accurate readings, so. I
So
don't
is
think
it
it'd be-
useful for me to compare that with the one I already have or not?
I don't know, that's just what the website said, so in my opinion, I would still like to have a high air quality monitor actually versus depending on this.
And what they said when I talked about the difference between his and mine at our last meeting. They said, oh, well, you probably need to suck it out with an air vacuum cleaner to get it clean. And maybe that was the problem with it. I mean, they've got excuses for everything, it sounds like, so.
Yeah, I liked our experiment with them both running at the same table in the same meetings on different sides of the room. And I was giving them the benefit of the doubt and assuming they were calibrated just fine and that maybe yours was under a vent, which is why it was fluctuating so much. But even so, it just makes me question the usefulness of the data to us. Because they seem to make it pretty clear on their website that, there's professional quality and lab quality and whatever other quality, and then there's ours. And what does that do for the Environmental Commission or the city of Bloomington?
Yeah. Did you guys do you come up with any information on like grants and funding at all, or anything just very general?
Yeah, so the American Rescue Plan Act has some funding coming in, and they're actually updating the Bloomington Benford monitor. IDEM is planning to do that in 2023. I found out, I've reached out to IDEM, but no one's gotten back to me yet. And then also the Inflation Reduction Act, everything as well, same as that, we talked about that. That's all I've really.
Great, thank you. That's really good information. It would be interesting to see if, there might be some grants that Bloomington would be eligible for that. So we'll keep tabs on that.
Throw this out there, it will come up later, but Monroe County Environmental Commission was really interested in our interest in working on air quality monitoring.
Okay.
And wanted to know basically if we could tell them more about what our goals are. And I didn't know the name of the monitors, things like that.
Right, we're still, our plans are still in place.
Yeah.
Maybe we could sell them to them.
There you go. They said that they've done some work a couple of years ago and have some data that they'd be willing to share. That it may be an area of collaboration for us. And maybe I'll touch base with you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my understanding of I believe it was the Inflation Reduction Act at the time that I was reading about it, we just said the climate and tax law, but it's my understanding that $281 million were being allocated to states for air quality monitoring. And I'm assuming that would mean the states would have to request that. And at the time of reading that, it was my hope then that IDEM would decide to update some or all of their Indiana locations and monitor and categorize everything so that it was under one roof. But maybe we would be able to get more than just the fine particulate. We'd actually get more measurements and better measurements. And I had also independently reached out to IDEM and asked them a couple of procedural questions, and then also if they had any plans to update all of their equipment, and they answered the first half. They did not answer the second question. So I have no idea if they have plans to request funding on that or not. That's what I'm at.
That's funny.
Seems odd that the instructions that come with this don't say a word about, well, you gotta use it for 2 months before it's useful for anything. You would think they'd tell you that if it was a necessary thing, and they don't.
It was on their frequently asked questions tab of their website for that product. So, another thing about air quality was at the boards and commissions dinner. I had like a brief minute to chat with the mayor, and I told him, we're interested in doing that. And he seemed like he was game for it, but of course, he's not gonna personally make sure it happens himself. He said that when he was the director of IDEM, he was working on creating a statewide air quality monitoring sort of system, but he left before I was able to. He didn't know exactly how far that got, but it sounds like we have a pretty good idea of what air quality stations are around us. And it's not very robust. So, yeah. So, based on what the Monroe County Environmental Commission said, do you think it would warrant getting together and meeting with them? Or
Perhaps in time, I don't think at this stage, but I love the idea of collaborating. We don't know exactly what our goals are yet.
Great, okay. Anybody else have anything to add for air quality? Okay. So the next item is the follow-up on the stormwater management. And I had a opportunity to meet with Vic Kelson. He's the director of City of Bloomington Utilities. I got to ask him some pretty pointed questions about what's going on in Bloomington with that. It actually sounds pretty promising. The new underground tunnel that they are adding to and almost done with is going to increase the stormwater capacity enough that Bloomington should be able to handle a storm like we had last June, but with twice the number of rainfall. So that's what they're saying on paper, but it would be good to I'm not gonna say like, see what happens, you know? But, yeah. Some other details about what you said is that, they are working with IU about the stormwater coming off of that watershed from campus. The way he phrased it was that there are flooding issues in so many other parts of town, is that that's not their like only singular focus. So they can't like dedicate their entire resources to that. Having said that, they are also doing some green infrastructure work. They have a $400,000 a year annual budget for green infrastructure. Most of that, unfortunately, falls into GI maintenance. They would be able to get more done if they had more funding for that. But they are going to petition the I forget what board it is, but they're trying to increase the stormwater fee so they can put more funding into that and other stormwater issues in Bloomington. They're trying to get more money for MS4 office in Bloomington, and there is a big stormwater detention basin being installed near Ruby Lane and Daring Lane. Do you know where that is?
I know where Ruby Street is, but what was the other one?
Can't read my handwriting. It's either Devon or Daring Lane. So near Deer Park Manor.
Okay.
Yeah, are you familiar with that one? Okay. So, basically, the gist is that it sounds like, after being able to finally get a hold with somebody after a few dead ends, they really are on top of things that we're really trying to focus on. So I would say the next step for us, if we wanted to, go along with this, we could come up with some pointed green infrastructure ideas for them to consider in the future. Other than that, I'd want to not spend a lot of time on that issue. So
Point of interest, Rick Kelson is a former at least master's student in environmental planning, possibly PhD, but anyway, he was one of our better students. So he's a good guy to have in that place.
yeah. I think he mentioned to me that he has like maybe a PhD in hydrology.
Yeah. Okay.
So
PhD in something.
yeah,
Okay.
so he's the person for the job.
It was fun to see it.
Yeah.
Sam, did you say that that detention basin is going to be in Deer Park Manor?
I think it's adjacent to Deer Park.
Oh, I know where that is.
Yeah.
now. Okay, I know where that is now,
Okay.
but I can't remember the name of that street that you can't read your writing on.
But Ruby Lane doesn't actually intersect with Deer Park Manor.
No, it's just in that location. There's a street that has houses on it, and the back of the houses are adjacent to Deer Park.
There's flooding there.
So, yeah, he invited anyone who's interested to take a look at it if we wanted to. He said they're always open to input from us also on any of their projects. And the last thing I'll say is that they've had a lot of success doing a lot of these green infrastructure and surface stormwater management jobs in-house instead of hiring contractors. So they're going to focus on only hiring engineers to do the design work and carry out most of it themselves. So. Okay, that is it for old business, unless anybody else has anything to add to stormwater. Okay. Finally, new business. And then the discussion on PFAS, changing the number of chickens from 5 to 10. And I added that to this agenda because that was another thing that came from the boards and commissions dinner. I ran into a few PFAS members and they thought it might be nice if we could work together with them on this. I kind of put the ball on the report on doing the work, writing any language that would go along with it. So, it's just something to put in your brain. Maybe sometime in the next few meetings, we might have something to, potentially endorse, some language.
Do we want to take a straw poll on who would even be interested in?
Yeah. And David?
I'm gonna disagree with Jamie on this, I think, but, even with 4 chickens and no roosters, they can wake you up at 5 in the morning if a fox comes around or something, and the people to the back of our property used to have 4 chickens, and they would every now and then wake me up at 5 in the morning. So I'd like not to see more chickens, I guess. I wouldn't mind keeping 4, but even then, they can be problematic even without a rooster.
I was been asked discussion wise, what are the pros and cons of 5 versus 10, both environmentally and beyond? Does anyone have input on that?
I think I have a little input on that.
As well.
Damian, did you raise your hand first?
It doesn't matter. I will certainly
Go ahead.
speak to the chickens, but you go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that, I think it does fall under the umbrella of sustainability and environmentalism in that, it can very generally reduce people's needs on protein and meat sources from the, like industrial agriculture, system, and it's just generally more, sustainable to be able to compost food scraps and stuff like that. So, in terms of quantitatively, I couldn't say for sure. There's data on that, so. I want to do what Linda said, or Linda did, okay. go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Damian.
Okay, well, I have chickens and I have had for 10 years. And I think one of the controls that used to be on the chicken system was that people who wanted chickens had to pay $25 a year to the animal control people. And they also had to get their neighbors' signatures to have chickens. So when we first got chickens, that's what we did. We went to our next door neighbors and they both signed. And I would like to say that our neighbors to the south moved in after we got chickens, and she told me that is one of the reasons they bought their house. Her husband didn't want to have chickens, but she loves them, and she wanted this house because she could be next door to chickens. And so when we travel, she takes care of them, and when they travel, I take care of her cat. So not everybody finds them objectionable the way Dave does. But I think one of the things that that the city could do is to reinstate the signature process, so that somebody who wants to get a new flock could ask their neighbors if it's all right with them. And then if somebody objected, well, then they wouldn't be able to. But I would like to, in addition to eggs, chickens are really good for insect control. They keep ticks and mosquitoes and other kinds of insect pests out of our backyard, which is wonderful. The other thing is that they eat everything that is not poultry products. In other words, we compost and we recycle our scraps, and the chickens eat everything that is left over from our house. We produce almost no food waste. And so having them allows us to be much more sustainable in terms of the food that we buy and consume. And the other thing is that they are wonderful for grandchildren. And they are friends. Chickens are much smarter than people give them credit for. And they like people, and they know us. And so I would like to say that it is a great pleasure to have chickens. In terms of increasing from 5 to 10, I think that really depends on the size of your yard. You guys may or may not know that there is a chicken inspector on the staff of the city. And she comes around once a year and makes sure that they have enough room and that they're treated properly. And I think it would be something else we could recommend as part of our letter, is that the chicken inspector determine whether the household has room for more chickens. I mean, we do, because our chicken coop is much bigger than required. But the other thing is that, you know, the egg laying process, I'm sorry for going on so long. The egg laying process basically slows down about age 4 or 5. And most of us who have chickens have made pets of them, and we love them, and we don't want to kill them when they're done laying. And so increasing the number of chickens would allow us to refresh our flock and let the older chickens die of natural causes, as opposed to requiring the owners to dispose of them in some other way. So I would really like to see this happen. And I know Dave is totally opposed to roosters, but I will tell you that they have a function. They protect the flocks. They do. Roosters are actually important to the well-being of a group of hens. And I quite like the noise, actually. So I'm done.
David,
Actually, my wife and I are thinking about having chickens, despite what I said.
They're really fun, Dave, and they're
oh
wonderful.
man, that's great.
But,
I will tell you one thing, though. We had a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old come visit our chickens, and ours are so tame that they will let you pick them up and pat them. And so when they went home to Chicago, they decided to go to a hobby farm, a petting zoo, and the chickens wouldn't let themselves be petted. And so they were very disappointed. So if you want to pat a chicken, you can come to my house.
David, and then did you raise your hand, Megan?
about roosters, my wife has a farm down in Kentucky, and the next door neighbors had a rooster for quite some time, and boy, if you tried to sleep there on the farm, it would wake you up in the morning. And I grew up in a small town with a chicken hatchery, actually a bird hatchery that people all over the country know, have heard of, McMurray Hatchery. And it used to be, if I were sleeping out on the porch as a kid, they were about a mile away, and the rooster there would wake me up in the morning too. So I'm not fond of roosters.
I certainly agree that I am not particularly fond of roosters and find them very disruptive. I have also had negative experiences with neighbors having chickens that were not cared for properly. They were free range chickens, and that they became free range in my yard and my garden all the time. That I did not get help from the city in the way that I would have hoped in response to that. And I'd add on the fact that they eat insects, that they are generalists. So they also eat the ones that we like, right? The good insects. But I would agree with Damia that in some situations in the city, it could be appropriate to have 10, but certainly not all situations in the city. And so I would support if it was something of the chicken inspector ensuring it was the right situation.
I think it's perfectly appropriate to have, you know, some sort of oversight of this process. And if their chickens were free ranging in your yard, they were breaking the law.
Yeah.
I'd like to recognize Betsy.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if there's any sort of ordinance that deals with pet waste or animal waste, but one of my primary concerns is when you double the amount of animals that you have, you're doubling the amount of waste as well. So if there's not some sort of process, maybe Damia can kind of speak to this. You know, precipitation events will cause runoff, and that can bring E. coli into wells, into bodies of water, you know, like rivers. So that would be a primary concern of mine, is the waste management.
Well, I tell you, in the now it might be different in the country, but in the city, we have raccoons and skunks and hawks and coyotes and neighborhood dogs and cats that will prey on chickens. So our chickens are only out when we can be with them, which is about an hour a day. So most of their poop is basically concentrated in their fenced in and roofed yard. It is the most wonderful fertilizer. We compost it and we put it on our vegetable gardens. And quite frankly, 5 chickens isn't enough. I mean, really, we used to spend a lot of money buying horse manure and other kinds of stuff. But the problem with that is that horse owners feed their horses medicated feed. And so you end up with all this stuff on your garden that you don't want. And so, you know, if you have chickens, I mean, I don't think that people would have chickens unless they were interested in sort of backyard farming anyway, right? And so we compost our chicken poop. We put it on our gardens after it's been, you know, sitting for a while, and it has basically cut us loose from the retail manure market. You know, and it gets harder and harder to find any kind of manure that doesn't have antibiotics or other kinds of medications in it. So for us, it's kind of, it's a cycle. It's a life affirming cycle that allows us to live and garden the way that we want to. So at any rate, you can't leave your chickens out all the time in the city because there are too many predators. And so really the problem, and chicken poop is basically solid. And so there's not any runoff to really worry about. Well, there isn't. I mean,
No, that one I won't go for that one.
Yeah, I disagree.
no, there isn't. I mean,
Danny, I have a question for you. Do you know if the city's chicken inspector considers the waste aspects when they're doing their inspection?
well, that's a good question.
Okay.
We were told, I'm sure this has changed, but we were told 4 or 5 years ago that we had the best chicken coop in the city. But in order to protect them from hawks, you have to have a roof over your chicken coop. So we have a house, and then we have a fenced in yard, which has a roof on it. In fact, since I'm on Zoom, I can take you out and show you our chicken house.
Suppose we have a second.
All right. So here's our chicken coop. All right. And there are our girls. And when we realized that we had to leave
Talking real quick.
the new living room. And we've got, and so at any rate, you'll see we have a roof over them, and you can't see with the new living room, but it's got screen on top. And that is to keep the predators out. But most of the pooping is done in the coop itself, which is covered by a roof. So to tell you the truth, the problem that I have more than chicken poop that is liquid is that it dries out and gets powdery. And so there are times of the year when I wear a mask when I'm cleaning out the coop because it's dry. So really, I mean, you scoff, but runoff is not a problem because it doesn't get wet. And they don't really pee. Chickens mostly poop. And if they're healthy, it's solid and it dries out really quickly. And when it's undercover, and most of the people I know, everybody's coops are covered because, you know, you've got hawks that will come in from the top, but raccoons can climb. We lost our first 4 chickens to skunks. So that's the first lesson that any urban chicken owner learns, is that you have to fortify your chicken coop to protect them from predators.
Okay, I'll have to recognize Carrie and then Linda.
So it sounds like the main things we're talking about are making sure that we understand if the neighbors need to have buy-in or sign off, or all neighbors, or 75% or whatever, but that the neighbor sort of consent is part of it. And then part of it is the inspector making sure that is factored into the approved. And then the last one about the waste or coop. I think that there are a lot of questions that are probably in the existing
Yeah.
requirements for it that we can find out, but it does sound like, even with the waste, I mean, there are people who may not care if their chickens get eaten by coyotes every week, and might just go and get more chicken, like, I don't want to be too presumptuous about what the rules are for versus what is very sensible, which is having a really beautiful structure that your chickens live in. But knowing that if we are expanding it to 10, and if there's somebody who's not very careful with their chickens, it could end up being a big mess and,
Sure.
you know, could be a lot more impact than somebody who's super responsible with their chickens might allow.
Linda?
I will, ask people, higher paid grade than me to see if anybody's thought about this. I can easily envision the only way that, the number could be expanded is if you had a bigger yard. And there was more of a setback between you and your neighbors or something like that, but, I'll do some poking around and see if anybody's thought about it.
Yeah, and the direction I was coming from when I was speaking with, his name was Matt from DCOS, is they live on quite a large urban farm in the Covenanter neighborhood. And, they feel like they're limited with, just 5 chickens and the size that they could potentially, inhabit there. So I think it would, like some of you guys are saying, should depend on, you know, if there would be room to accommodate that or not.
There's a large urban farm in Covenanter neighborhood.
Yeah, the one on the
That's my-
corner,
That's my neighborhood.
I and Covenanter, like the 3rd Street
Oh,
off
yeah.
to the right.
Yeah,
I've landscaped for them too, so
Okay.
they have an orchard and all sorts of stuff.
yeah.
So, did you raise your hand?
I was just gonna say, and I don't know, I've never looked into it, but I assume that there could be some sort of like square footage to chicken ratio or something like that, that either exists or exists for other cities where it's like, you can only get.
Yeah,
more
there are
here.
rules about that, Carrie.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, the statute as it's written specifies how much room each chicken has to have, and that's one of the things the inspector looks for.
yeah, cool.
And
Okay.
the other thing that's in the statute is that the homeowner is required to make sure that their chickens are safe.
Nice.
Okay, okay. So, it looks like we have a variety of perspectives, and there are also, quite a few, items to consider with this. Looks like there's some more information you can find out too by specifically looking at the, existing requirements. Linda, would that be under the animal control board? The title?
Title 7, and it would be, but, how much the setbacks and how big your property has to be and things like that are in Title 20.
Okay.
What is the situation here? Is Eco's plan on writing a letter and wants us to sign off on it? Is that-
So that,
No,
that's my understanding. That's when I spoke with them is that, I asked if they could kind of do the legwork on that.
Why don't we see what their draft is and then see where
Yeah.
we go with that?
Yeah, definitely. And then that's only if everyone here wants to do that too. We have a majority for that, so. I would accept a motion to, determine if we want to. Keep considering this after this month.
I move, so
Okay.
move.
Second, okay. I will start with David, since we have to do roll call vote.
So the question is whether we want to consider it,
Yes,
not that we are for or against it.
yes, yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Betsy, Matt,
Yes.
Yes.
then Karen.
Yeah.
Well, I also vote yes. So, we will revisit this next month when we have more information, and in the meantime, I will circle back with BCOS. Tell them a little bit about what we talked about and, sort of put the ball in their court. And let them know that, within reasonability, we, might entertain, some language that they write. So. That is it for the chicken discussion, and then Unless anyone else has anything to add to it. Okay. And then the last item for new business is the outreach working group discussion. And Carrie, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so we've had a couple of events in the last few months that have been, tabling events, a chance to kind of get a little bit more environmental commission materials out there and interacting with the community, which is super fun. And what helps make that even more effective is to have a better sense of what we need, how we can do it, how we can do it smoothly, and kind of keep things organized. And so one thing that we've kind of been talking about is sort of gathering a group of folks who we know are interested in the outreach process. And ideally, it would be people who would either want to like help facilitate that for like Bud Fest or something, or two, show up and be there and just be part of the energy and interaction with the community. Or three, just help with the material production side of things, because as we hand out pamphlets and things like that, it's super helpful to have them. So one thing I would like to do is just to kind of get a sort of put out there, if you are interested in being involved in this kind of thing. That's great. I know it's not for everyone, and there are lots of other things that we're doing as a commission, so I understand that not everybody can do it. But I'm gonna sort of do a shout out for folks to raise their hand to say, in an ongoing general sort of sense, I'd like to be involved in that. And then I shared with Sam and Megan kind of an idea of how to collect information about the events we've done, so that way we can anticipate them in the coming years, kind of keep sort of a catalog of the things we participate in. Was it fun? Was it beneficial? Did it go well? Was there some obvious things we could have done differently, so that we can have sort of a more active presence in the community? And I know that the eco-zero thing is coming up, so this feels like kind of a good time to re-gauge who would like to be involved in outreach, who likes that stuff, and who likes to be facing the community, and who would love it, but maybe not actually be the one doing it, but be helping make sure that we can do it. So
Excellent.
if you want to shout out that you're interested, go for it. Otherwise, I'll send an email. Megan, Betsy, great. Matt, I know you're gonna raise your hand because I'm gonna guilt trip you into help.
I would, but I've missed too many obligations. I don't want to.
So I can guilt trip you about not going, but. No, you're totally fine.
Carrie, I unearthed a number of fact sheets and brochures and stuff from the past when I was getting stuff ready for Megan. And I think it would be beneficial if a group came and looked at all that stuff and said, should we make more of them? Should we revise them? Should we recycle them and forget about that project? You know, there's some like the styrofoam food packaging that seems to me like it should be revived.
That sounds,
So,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I love that. That'll be our first point of communication, is looking through the materials, so that's great. Okay, well, I'll do a shout out in case you think about it later and realize it's actually what we really want to do is join the outreach group. But if not, we'll just keep you updated on things going on. But part of the goal is also, as people express interest in events that are happening and say, maybe the commission would want to be involved, then we'll have more of a central way to streamline what to do with that when it happens, so we're not all just kind of scrambling the day before.
Thank you for that, Carrie. That's one of the most important things we do is outreach. So I really appreciate you doing that. So,
Absolutely, happy.
does anybody have anything to add on that now? Okay. So that is it for new business. And then are we doing commissioner announcements before I do report? Okay, then we'll do reports and then commissioner announcements. So the first one is street commission, and is that Demia?
Okay.
Yeah.
What we did at the last meeting was everybody was supposed to come up with a short list of trees that they wanted to add to the interior tree list. As you may know, I have a conflict that occurred when the tree commission meeting moved from Wednesday to Monday. And I was prepared to come tonight and ask for somebody to replace me, but they didn't want me to do that just yet. They've moved the meeting back a half an hour and told me that the chances of them finding another meeting time in the second semester, because we have a couple of IU students on the tree commission now, and that it's their class schedule that's causing the trouble. So I'm gonna hang in there for a couple more months and see if we can work it out. So at any rate, I had to leave before they collated the lists. We had a report from Haskell Smith, our new urban forester, and I have to tell you, I think this guy is going to be fantastic. I'm really excited about his appointment. One of the things he did prior to the meeting is he sent us all an article that was written by someone who led the course that he took when he was being certified as an arborist about causes of tree failure. And it was fantastic. It was like 2.5 pages. And I learned a whole bunch of stuff about why trees fail, which I hadn't known before. And so the fact that he is interested in educating the tree commission is like a huge deal. So basically what's going on is that the city is going through its sort of usual fall activities of pruning and removing trees and planting new trees as long as the weather holds. And that's basically what's happening. He is working on a plan for replacing a lot of the trees in the downtown area that have died. And one of the things that's important is enlarging the tree grates. If you look at the trees that are planted, the street trees around the downtown, you'll see that the tree grates are actually quite small. They're 4x4. And the plan is to, wherever possible, enlarge them to be 5x5. And that doesn't seem like it would be a huge amount, but actually it really makes a difference to the tree. So, so that's happening. And let's see. The other thing is, this has to do with the UDO. That the UDO mandates a particular distance from various things, buildings and stuff. But it's, and that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, you're fine.
Okay. It's so nobody is quarreling with that, but the problem is trees that are already in existence, what they're calling legacy trees. And so Haskell is going to see what he can do to see if he can get waivers for mature trees that are already existing, so that we don't have to cut mature trees down to conform with the setback requirements. So Linda, you're looking puzzled, but this is what we talked about.
Yeah, I'm just not sure, in the UDO, you know,
where that is.
says, yeah,
I
I'll
think
look it up. We don't need to talk
Yeah,
about it here
yeah.
tonight.
So anyway, yeah, so that's about what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Damia. That is it for tree commission. The next one is the Monroe County Environmental Commission. Megan, is that you?
Yes, that is me. I have to start by saying I apparently missed this month's meeting. And yes, last month it was the week after ours. Apparently this week it was before, or this month it was before. But in September, we discussed our air quality monitoring efforts and potential spaces for collaboration. And they were certainly interested in learning more about what we're doing. They also were working at that time on getting an ERI, so Environmental Resilience Institute intern, which apparently a lot of cities have and a lot of, I guess, different programs have, but not a lot of counties have done in the past. So they were excited and putting together that proposal. They were also working through their Monroe County Council budget determination, and we're working to add charging stations for electric vehicles. And also we're completing a solar survey, hoping to add a lot more solar panels to county buildings. The other big point that we talked about a lot was the new Zero in Bloomington website, where people can commit to reducing carbon emissions and learn about ways to do that. They were largely talking about ways that people who are in the county, not incorporated with the city, can make use of that resource. But we're also talking about how great and helpful of a resource it is for those of us in the city.
Great, thank you, Megan. The next one is BCOS, and Don usually does that, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll just throw in one thing. I went to the meeting on the working group that they have, or team, or whatever they call, on heat preparedness.
Oh, good.
And it was a really good meeting, although it was, just the beginning, and, they're trying to get a group of people together to come up with a plan. And so people were very engaged and got off to a really good start.
Did you meet with the person who was heading that working group?
Yes,
Sean?
yes,
Okay, and then did you chat with them about that UDO stuff?
yes,
You're writing about heat islands?
yes.
Okay, good. I was talking with their chair, Joe, about that and mentioned that you're doing that, so I'm happy that circle is completed right there.
Yeah,
Also from me meeting with him, I haven't heard anything else like they're working on, so that might be like best summary for BCOS right now.
yeah, that's all I know.
Okay,
They didn't have any minutes. I looked for minutes from last month, and they're not out.
okay. Thank you for that. ERAC, David. did they
Yeah,
leave last
I
time?
was on Nantucket Island, and that meeting met, and I got into the meeting a little late by Zoom. I didn't take notes, but some things I remember are that this year they're having a deer hunt that will be just 2 weekends rather than 3 up at Griffey. Last year, in the last few years, they've done 3 weekends. This time they're going to do just 2 because I think last year there were hardly any in the 3rd week that were not many hunters showed up, I think. The second thing I remember is I remembered it a few minutes ago. Oh, they're going to do burning up at Griffey again. Controlled burning in part of the forest there. And then the new urban forester was there and spoke for quite a while. I was impressed. Like today, yeah, I was impressed and thought he was a good fellow. So I'm glad we have that. What I will do is when I get the minutes from that meeting, which is usually a couple of months later, I will tell you of other things that may have gone on that were important to us.
Okay. Thanks, David. The next one is the Metropolitan Planning Organizing Citizens Advisory Council. That one is mine to cover. They don't have any new business from their September meeting, but they did chat a little bit about the EV infrastructure deployment plan for Indiana. I don't know if there's anything super concrete with that yet, but it'd be really great to see Bloomington be a big hub for that. So other than that, they just talked about some stuff like ADA compliance for transportation, stuff like that. So that is it for MPO CAC. Is Friends of Lake Monroe still defunct?
Well, nothing going on at the moment,
Yeah.
but they will I hope be coming back with the grant that they're looking for.
Okay. and then MC Iris. And we don't have Dawn with us.
I go to all those meetings, yeah. I think I reported last time that the plant sale was a roaring success. And that they're going to focus on calorie care again next year. Okay, then I don't have anything to report.
I don't think there's much that they're needing anything this month.
Not, yeah, now, especially now that the annual meeting, the dinner is over with and kind of just working on seed gathering for germinating for next year's plant sale.
Great.
Actually, I have a comment about MCRS. They're useful at providing you with information. I thought that a bamboo plant that I had dug up had reproduced and was spreading all over, and we sent a photograph of that, and they said, "Oh, well, those are daylilies." So, but I did. It took several days to get an answer, but I did get an answer. The daylilies were right where I dug up the bamboo. So.
Daylilies are invasive, though. I didn't know. They're East European, I think.
But they're not on the invasive list.
Right.
So they're exotic.
Well, they're exotic, but for my work at Ecologic, we consider them invasive. We saw them replacing the areas, so, but they're not like that's
Not taking
Two big clusters going in our yard and one in this yard, but I can do without, but.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is it for our reports. Our last item is commissioner announcements. Does anybody have anything to announce personally? Gary?
So last week I was at, the organization I work for is the North American Association for Environmental Education. And every year they do this big conference where environmental educators from all over the country and also internationally come together to talk about what are the biggest issues that they're facing, whether it's talking about how they teach about climate justice in classrooms, or how you engage communities with effective plans and programs that they want to do, or a lot of talk about the concepts of equity and belonging and things like that. So it was really, really fun, lots to learn, but I definitely came away with so many different ideas and thoughts about how we as a commission are either part of the community or not part of the community, or engaging with people or not engaging, or being engaged with. And so that's something that kind of, as we think about the future of the EC, and as we're having conversations about what we do with these other, commissions or boards and different events that we participate in and how we work together, that's something that I would really love us all to think about is, do we want anything, do we have a mission of how we want to be interacting with others to have an impact on the conversations we're having turn into things and change, or young people getting excited about what we're doing, or older people knowing that they still have a really important place in our community, like all the different things in between. So just want to share, that's something that I came away from, with just all sorts of ideas, and I won't inundate you all with all of them now, but there's all sorts of little like fires started that I'm excited to share.
Really excited.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for that. Does anybody else have anything? We'll go with Megan and then decide to take.
Throw out a pitch for Science Fest this weekend, happening all over IU's campus. It's on Saturday from 9 a.m. I think to 2 p.m. I unfortunately will be traveling, so I don't see your faces, but it's really cool, so you should check it. I'll be there. 9 to 3.
Okay, thank you.
I talked about McMurray Hatchery. It's an important part of my life, and so I just like to comment about that. Actually, 2 or 3 years ago, Bloomington Hardware was getting their chickens that they sell in the spring from McMurray Hatchery. It was started back around 1900 by a guy named Murray McMurray, who was my father's scoutmaster. His son was my scoutmaster. His son was in my class in high school, so I have a close connection with the McMurrays. And my scoutmaster was like a second father to me, so it was an important bunch of people for me. I actually worked there one Saturday morning, stapling together the boxes that they used to mail chicks. And I was impressed by the one group of people sitting in the back that are real experts in sexing chicks, because it's apparently not easy, and they were
No.
they were highly paid.
Well, on that note, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today.